Catherine here with Ukulele Wine Time. This is strumming for beginners. So when we think about strumming, there's actually two parts to it. There's the physical part and then there's the mental part. So I'm going to take you through some techniques for both in this video series so that you'll feel super confident when learning a song, and all these different strumming patterns are going to start to make a lot more sense. First, we'll take a look at the physical mechanics, how to actually strum. I'm going to give you some tips for beginners to help you find success and find a good sound on your instrument. And then I'm going to take you through more of the mental aspect of it. So how to count, how to think about rhythm. We're going to play 6 different strumming patterns on your ukulele. There's a free printable sheet down below. I'll link to that so you can print it out. Here it is. It's got all of these strumming patterns on it broken down. So it's a great visual aid to have by your side as you're learning. We'll then apply all of these different strumming patterns to a song. So I've chosen She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain. It's a very simple beginner song using the chords C, F, and G. So I'll break that down for you and then we'll try out our strumming patterns using that song. If you're new to my channel, hi, welcome. My name is Catherine. I have my master's degree in music. I've been teaching music to kids and adults for over 12 years, and I love playing and teaching the ukulele. I'm also a Kala ambassador for Kala Brand Music. I'm playing a Kala today. So part 1, we're going to talk about the physical aspects of strumming, which fingers to use, how to actually strum on your instrument. So let's get into it. So you may have noticed that people use different fingers to strum their ukulele. Some people use their thumb, some people use their pointer finger, some people use all 4 of their fingers here. Now I'm going to take you through today how to use your pointer finger, which is what I recommend for beginners. And the reason for that is because it's going to give you the most control starting out as you're putting all of these pieces together, with the caveat that later, as you're kind of stepping out of the beginner realm, you're going to start being more comfortable with your own body and your instrument, and then you're going to kind of start to develop your own style. So I'm going to give you a great foundation here, and then from there, you can kind of find what feels more comfortable to you. You'll also find that there are different instances where you might use different fingers or different parts of your hand to strum. For example, when I'm learning a new song, I'll often just use my thumb to strum down the chords and just get those under my fingers as I'm learning the song. And then later I'll add more rhythm doing my strumming pattern. Also, if you start exploring finger picking later, then your hand will be in a different shape for that as well. So there's lots of different directions you could go in, but I just want to stress the point that there's not one correct way to strum your instrument. I'm just going to show you a way that I recommend for beginners. So let's try strumming with your pointer finger and the shape we're going to put our hand in. So you're going to pinch almost like you're writing. You're going to support with your thumb, and it's going to be back a little bit. So you can start with like this and then move your thumb slightly back. And then these fingers over here are just going to curl gently, so you're not clenching in a fist. It's just nice and loose and curved. Okay? And you could do a couple little hand rolls there to make sure everything is nice and loose and relaxed. And a good way to look at this is almost as if you were going to let your hand hang limp. And then you can kind of put your thumb together with your pointer finger. So let's try that out on your instrument. Just do a couple strums to see what that feels like. And you're strumming with the back of your nail here, so kind of the middle of the nail on your pointer finger. So do a couple down strokes going down with your pointer finger. Making sure you're catching all of the strings. And it's a nice even pressure. It's not super, super hard. You're not digging way into it, nor is it feathery soft. It's really a kind of a medium pressure. And it's almost, you can imagine it that you're painting with a paintbrush. It's a very fluid movement. And especially when we start going back up with upstrokes, that's a nice image to keep in your mind. Let's take a look at your wrist now when you're strumming. So you want to make sure your wrist is nice and loose and relaxed when you're strumming. And this is really where you're strumming from. It's not your whole forearm. You're not moving this like a robot or like a chopping action. It's a really relaxed wrist in your right hand. And if you're not using a strap, which mine just fell off, you will be holding your ukulele up with your forearm anyway, right? So that even more so supports you strumming with your wrist. And you want to make sure your wrist is not bent. It should be nice and straight. If it's bent like this, that's going to cause pain over time. So just want to make sure you're setting up a good, healthy foundation as you're beginning out on the ukulele. Let's try 4 downstrokes, so going down on a C chord. So that is our 3rd finger, ring finger, 1, 2, 3, on the 3rd fret, 1, 2, 3 of your bottom string or your A string. Okay, so that's our C chord. Now let's try 4 downstrokes together. I'll count us off. 1, 2, ready, play. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another thing to be aware of is where actually on your instrument you're strumming. So you've got the sound hole here, and then you've got up the fretboard. And if you start to notice other people playing, you'll actually see them playing in many different areas of the instrument. However, starting out, I recommend trying to aim for this area right here, for a couple of reasons. 1, it's going to give you a nice even tone on your instrument. And then 2, especially for beginners, one common pitfall is that as you're figuring out the mechanics of your fingers over here, it can be sort of easy to fall into this sound hole if you're strumming too low on your instrument. So I recommend hanging out right up here for when you're starting out. I also invite you to explore. You can try out what it sounds like to strum in different areas of your instrument. So higher up the neck, it's going to give you a different tone than right here in the middle versus down here over the sound hole. So it's just different tones. But again, for beginners, I do recommend hanging out right about here. Okay, so we talked downstrokes using the nail of your pointer finger. Now let's talk about upstrokes, so going up the strings, and you're going to use the fleshy part of your pointer finger for this. And that's why we also have moved our thumb back a little bit to give yourself room. So the thumb is really there for support. So now I want you to try a couple upstrokes just on their own to see what those feel like. You can do it nice and slow at first to make sure you're hitting all of the strings. Then you can speed up the time that it takes to travel over the strings. Nice and even. Once that's feeling more comfortable, then you can try a couple down, up, down, up, nice and slow, just to get the feeling of that. And again, this is where that image of kind of gracefully painting almost a curved shape can really be helpful in picturing your hand brushing over the strings in a nice graceful movement. All right, and you're doing downs and ups. Let's talk troubleshooting next. So if you're having trouble getting your finger, or if you're having trouble catching and maybe it's hitting the cuticle or your skin up here, you might be tilting your ukulele too far up this way. And this is totally common for beginners to want to look down at your fingers, your chord hand, what's going on down there. When you do this, it's going to make it much more awkward to strum. And that's when we start, when it's tilted up like this, when we start strumming with maybe a different part of our finger that we don't want to strum with. So make sure your ukulele is against your body and pointing out. That way also the sound hole or your speaker is pointing out so your friends and your family can hear the lovely sounds that you're making. Thank you so much for joining me for part 1 of Strumming for Beginners. I'll see you over in part 2 where we're going to learn our first 3 strumming patterns together. We're going to check out some counting and some rhythm, and then we're going to apply these strumming patterns to a song and try those all out. So spend some good time on this, what we learned together in part 1, going down and up, getting a nice loose wrist. And then I will see you over in part 2. Once again, my name is Catherine. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you soon. Ukulele wine time.